It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. My man Nick Ferguson will hang out with us, former NFL safety, KOA Radio in Denver, our NFL analyst. Get some thoughts with him on OTAs. That bizarre Stefon Diggs story. And I want to know from him what NFL team really stands to gain the most. Who needs OTAs the most? I know that sounds like a weird question. Who needs these off-season workouts the most? But I want to ask him, what team actually needs these off-season workouts that we don't really give a ton of thought to. We just think of guys going through the motions, running some plays, the younger players getting some opportunities to get some reps. But who needs it the most? I want to ask him that question coming up in a bit. Bill Belichick, Pablo Torre, Jordon, Hudson. This story that won't go away. And it's seemingly coming to a head with a deadline on Friday. I want to talk about that coming up a little later on in the show. I also want to talk some hockey because one team has punched its ticket for the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Sam Yarnell will hang out with us as we talk some hockey coming up in a few minutes. But we start things out in the NBA. And look, the Oklahoma City Thunder they have laid the groundwork throughout this entire postseason. And it's something we've talked about. We had Kurt Heelan on the show yesterday. He joins us every Wednesday on the show. Our friend, NBA insider for NBC Sports, who hangs out with us on the program. And we talked with him. And it feels like the Oklahoma City Thunder have sort of set this narrative in motion with 68 regular season wins. Keep in mind, they won 68 regular season games. And Chet Holmgren missed a huge swath of time during the regular season. They still won 68 games. And you see what Chet Holmgren actually means to that team. They still won 68 games during the regular season. They've now won 80 games heading into the NBA Finals. I think it's one of only 4 teams that have managed that accomplishment. 4 or 5 teams, whatever it is, that have managed that accomplishment. I think they've won now 4 games by 30 points or more in this postseason out of their 12 wins in the playoffs. Think about that for a second. You're playing the best of the best, at least you're supposed to be, in the postseason. And you've won 4 of those games by 30 points or more. This thing is setting up for Oklahoma City to win their first NBA championship. They head back to the finals for the first time since 2012. And look, what we have found out is defense still wins championships. As much as they do some great things offensively, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and you can go into the whole free throw merchant stuff and talk about all those things that you want. Defense still wins championships. Depth still wins championships. They go deep. They do some great things defensively. We know what Shai provides. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, at this point, feel kind of inevitable. Now, the Pacers love hearing that as they are on the precipice of a trip back to the NBA Finals. Just one win away. They have to try and knock off the Knicks on Thursday night. We'll have a full recap of that on Friday's show. But what Oklahoma City has done, Mark Daigneault, all the credit in the world to that organization, who just a couple of years ago won like 25 games. Think about the rise. They won like 25 3 years ago. 2 years ago, they won like 42 and 40. Had the great season last year, which came up short of expectations, obviously, in the postseason. And now here they are in the NBA Finals. And if you want something to point to as Adam Silver, if you want something to point to as the commissioner of this league, to be able to say, look, this is how you can turn your franchise around. This is how you can, this is how quickly. There doesn't have to be this process. You hear me, Philadelphia? There doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out period of suckiness for a fan base. You can turn it around quicker than you think. And the Oklahoma City Thunder have done that. Now, they will get the winner of the Knicks and Pacers, as we mentioned, with Game 5 at Madison Square Garden on Thursday night between those two teams. I do expect this series to get back to Indiana. I'd be surprised if the Knicks didn't find a way. In a series that has had a ton of close games, it's not as if the Knicks have... It's not like the Minnesota series, where Minnesota was dominated throughout, where you could see the disparity in talent, where you could see the disparity in terms of matchups, where you could see the disparity in terms of the resumes between the two teams and what they did throughout the regular season. We know Minnesota still has a ways to go. You know, there were a lot of people that argued, hey, you know, if Golden State had its full complement of players, it might have been Golden State that we saw in the Western Conference Finals and not Minnesota. And you know what? To some of those people, you might have actually been right. I may have poo-pooed some of you, but you might have actually been right. But instead, it wound up being the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now you've got this Knicks team, which tries to stave off elimination. We'll see if they can do so on Thursday night. But if they don't, we have this pending matchup between Indiana and Oklahoma City. And we had Kurt Heelan on the show yesterday. Kurt said he thinks this is a 5-game series. I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think we have sort of underestimated Indiana throughout this entire postseason. Obviously against Cleveland, we saw what they did against them. And now, a lot of people with the Knicks beating Boston thought the Knicks were the team to potentially beat if it wasn't Oklahoma City, that the Knicks had the second best odds going into these conference finals. And now we see the Knicks on the verge of going out in 5 games. I think if you underestimate Indiana, you do so at your own peril. And I think if you're the Pacers, you love this. You love the fact that everybody is picking Oklahoma City right now to wipe the floor with you. I mean, right now, the odds, Oklahoma City's minus 750 to win an NBA championship. Indiana's plus 650. And by the way, if you feel so desperate, you can get the Knicks at 24-1. If you've got money to burn, 24-1 on the Knicks. There you go. I still think the Knicks get it back to Indiana for Game 6, and then you take your chances from there. But that might just be wishful thinking from a Knicks fan. All right. We're going to talk some hockey on the other side. Sam Yarnell will stop by. We'll get some thoughts with him on the Florida Panthers, a 3rd straight trip to the Stanley Cup Finals. What does it all mean? We'll get to it next. Welcome back to the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll do some NFL. David Ardsman usually joins us on Thursdays, but today he is away handling some personal stuff, so we'll do some NFL with Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety. Let's talk some hockey. One team has punched its ticket for the Stanley Cup Final, and that is the Florida Panthers, who for the 3rd straight year find themselves in those Stanley Cup Finals after beating the Carolina Hurricanes on Wednesday night, and they did it in dramatic fashion, coming from 2-0 down to beat Carolina. And Sam, look, I mean, I'll tell you, it kind of had a feel like, Carolina was going to get this thing to a Game 6, and then Florida comes out, scores 3 in the second period before Carolina is able to tie it in the third, and then what do you know? Florida comes back, gets one to make it 4-3, and then the empty netter to go on and win it by a score of 5-3. And, just the 9th team in NHL history to make 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals, these Florida Panthers.
Yeah, it truly is impressive, and I think that kind of that goal that gave them the 4-3 lead really did embody the kind of, frankly, reality of this series. Aaron Ekblad obviously just bodying the defender on him. I believe it was Dimitri all over the time down behind the net. And that was kind of how this whole series went. Florida was the stronger team. They were the bigger, battered team the entire time. And it proved in this goal that ended up winning them the series. Ekblad turned around, shot it across the front of the net. Carter Verhaeghe was right there wide open and put it away for the game-winning goal, for the go-ahead goal at the time. And Jason, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that they're Thunder-esque. I know I said that last week, and it does feel like, especially after seeing what Edmonton's done with Dallas in the Western Conference Finals and how that goaltending on the Edmonton side has kind of picked itself up. It doesn't feel as much like the Florida Panthers or Thunder-esque, but they do feel in the same way that the Thunder do in the NBA, like they're just a degree better than the competition. And maybe Edmonton, obviously having the best player in the world and the best tandem in the world, maybe Edmonton will have something to say about that, because again, like you and I talked about earlier this week on this show, it really does feel inevitable, like it's going to be a Florida-Edmonton Stanley Cup final once again for the second year in a row. And quite frankly, it should be. Again, the Florida Panthers were the stronger team in this Eastern Conference. They were the team that had the playoff hockey ability, the physicality, the ability to put pucks on net, and the great goaltending behind it all. Let's not forget, I know that Carolina scored 3 in this game, including 2 in the first period, but Sergei Bobrovsky has been one of the better goaltenders in these playoffs. I really cannot say enough good things about him. And if they do, in fact, match up with Edmonton in the Stanley Cup Final, Florida will have the clear and obvious goaltending advantage. So, Florida, they felt like an inevitable team about halfway through this series. They were the bigger team, the stronger team, the better team. And Carolina, credit to them. They just weren't able to do enough late to be able to stave off, again, the better team.
And how about Bennett, by the way this game ended, because you had 4-3, you had Florida up 4-3, and Carolina pulls the goalie. And then you get a penalty on Florida, or you get a Florida penalty, and then they pull the goalie. And just as the penalty expires, the penalty was on Bennett. He comes flying out of the penalty box. The puck just happens to go all the way down to the other end of the ice, and he scoops it up for the empty netter to make it 5-3. Very serendipitous there, as Florida, again, goes on to get the victory. And now you start looking ahead to a potential matchup here with Edmonton. Florida right now the favorite, obviously, to win the Stanley Cup at -120. Edmonton at +115. And Dallas, if you want to go on a wish and a prayer, at 14-1 to win the Stanley Cup. If you're looking at the Conn Smythe right now, Connor McDavid is your favorite to win the Conn Smythe at +175. Then Sergei Bobrovsky at +210. Anything stand out to you when you look at the odds, whether it's Conn Smythe or the Stanley Cup, Sam?
I mean, we talked about it yesterday. Is Stuart Skinner still at 110-1? It feels like that to me is still the best bet because,
Value.
again, I'm not saying that Connor McDavid shouldn't win this award. He should, and probably.
Oh, now he's
will.
By the way, Stuart Skinner now to win the Conn Smythe is down to 50-1.
Yeah, so that got cut in half in a day. I wonder if the people over at FanDuel watched the show yesterday. Yeah, so the Stewart still stands out to me, 50-1.
Sure.
I mean, worth a
still
sprinkle.
Value.
Again, McDavid should win this award. He's going to be the best player in the series. No one is going to dispute that. The fact of the matter is, it's a narrative award, and the guy did just win the same award last year in a series that he lost. So do I think that he'll win it 2 years in a row? Yeah, probably. But when we're talking about betting, I'm going to take the bet that's going to pay me like literally 50 times that. So give me a little sprinkle on Stuart Skinner, just hoping he can get hot and have one of those stretches where he goes 4 games without allowing a goal, or 3 games it was 4 games he allowed 2 goals, with 3-game stretch he didn't allow a goal. Yeah, if he does one of those in the Stanley Cup Final, they're not going to have a choice. That guy's going to have to be your Conn Smythe winner.
By the way, I think it makes it to a Game 6 back in Edmonton. I think Dallas wins tonight. -130.
Wow.
-130 tonight on Dallas.
Then I would recommend betting Florida to win the Stanley Cup Final, because quite frankly, a team that plays a 5-game series versus a team that plays a 6 or a 7-game series, it's a world of difference when you talk about rest and you talk about the Florida Panthers having an advantage. So if you really do think that Dallas is going to push this series long 6 or 7 games, then I would recommend betting the Florida Panthers, even laying that juice for the Stanley Cup Final, because quite frankly, you're going to be getting a tired team.
All the travel in that series, too. Ugh. I mean, that's just not a fun. That is not. I mean, we talk about it from a media standpoint for the guys covering it, but even just from a player standpoint, and I know they're traveling in much more luxurious accommodations than the media is, schlepping it in kettle class. But that is not a fun series for those players going back and forth, even if you are traveling in more luxurious accommodations.
Yeah, I don't think any professional athlete is ever going to be excited about a 6.5 hour flight or whatever the case may be. But I mean, think about, Jason, what we were talking about when they were going over to do all those London games and overseas games last year. There are so many doctors and physical therapists and stuff who tell these guys what to do on the plane to make sure their bodies are in pristine shape the second they get off. I'm not worried about the players.
3 teams, I think 3 teams since 1980, 4 teams since 1980 have gotten to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 times in a row. The Florida Panthers now are one of them. The Islanders are one of them. Hats off to the Islanders, my brother's favorite team. So I just thought we'd throw that one out there as well. We're coming back with Nick Ferguson next. Welcome back to this Thursday edition of SportsWrap. Typically on Thursdays, we have David Ardsma here to talk baseball. MLB on Thursdays. David is in Houston doing something with someone. I don't know. We'll make it sound vague. That way you can just leave it to your imagination. He'll be back next week, though. We decided let's do some football today. Never a bad day to do some football. And if we're going to do it, let's bring in our guy, Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety, former Denver Bronco great, former Buffalo Bill, former New York Jet. Always our SportsWrap NFL guy, though. Hangs out with us on the program today. OTAs are underway, Nick Ferguson. The team that, and I know this is a loaded question, and it's going to make you rack your brain. And I probably should have asked you, I probably should have mentioned this before we even got on the conversation here. But if there's a team that really needs OTAs the most, a team that really needs to dig in and try and find things out and figure things out in these OTAs, is there one that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Tennessee Titans. They just think about how terrible they've been over the past couple of years, trying to figure out who's going to be their starting quarterback. Malik Willis was one of those guys. He was traded to the Green Bay Packers. Will Levis, was on the team. He's still on the team. I think he put mayo in his coffee? I think it's something like that. Really, really odd.
So
I mean,
gross.
now you draft Cam Ward. And if you are Will Levis, you're thinking, okay, well, my days have to be numbered. Or he's going to take the Chase Daniels approach where he's going to make a lot of money as a backup quarterback. But that is definitely a team that really needs to utilize the OTAs to get better and develop that chemistry with Cam Ward. Because Cam Ward, I mean, he's a decent quarterback. Will he be that quarterback to take them where they need to go? I don't know, because we know how this thing works. You need a supporting cast around you. And will he have that time? Because the pressure that goes into being a quarterback on a team that's terrible and you were drafted number 1 overall, that's a lot of pressure. And I've seen a lot of guys over the years collapse under that pressure.
Nick, a guy who felt that pressure last season was Drake May, and maybe a team that I'd argue needs OTAs a bunch is the New England Patriots when you talk about a new head coach and still a young quarterback and a lot of young weapons around that young quarterback. But one key weapon they signed in the offseason was not at OTAs this week, Stefon Diggs. Obviously, the video going around of all the wide receivers dropping passes, and everyone's like, hey, where's Stefon Diggs? Isn't he supposed to catch these? Well, there was another video that came out of him on a boat somewhere with a bunch of women who aren't Cardi B, his new girlfriend. What did you make of Stefon Diggs being absent from Patriots OTAs and partying down on the beach somewhere?
Well, here's what happened in OTAs. Some of it's voluntary, but for us, when I played, it was voluntary, mandatory. You were going to make sure that your derriere was there in the building because you want to make sure you're continuing to work on that chemistry. But there are certain players, like in Tampa Bay and other places, that some of their veteran players are not there. And that's based on what they've done over the years. So they kind of get that card. But hasn't this kind of like been a thing? Remember the Giants one time, their whole like offense or skill positions went down to Miami and they too were on the boat. But I'm not shocked because these are the things that wide receivers do. What I am shocked about is the pink powder. Well, what is the pink powder, right? Is it one? I know we usually say 1, 2, 3 Cancun, but now we're talking about 1, 2, 3 powder puff party or something like that. So I don't know what it is. And Cardi B is not the right person for Stefon Diggs' brand. I know he got injured with the Houston Texans, and now he's trying to bounce back. And I know even negative publicity is good publicity, but for him in this position, a guy going to the Patriots team, the Patriots way with Mike Vrabel, this is not how you want to start things off on the boat with other women. That's not Cardi B because I didn't see her in there. But then we get the pink powder. What the hell is the pink powder?
Well, Travis Kelce's got Taylor Swift. Stefon Diggs has Cardi B.
No, JP. No, they don't work. You can't put those two together like magnets. They don't work. Nice try. I mean, Travis Kelce and Swifties, okay, I get it. I understand. But we're not going to see Stefon Diggs and Cardi B kind of duplicate that same level.
Why not?
Come on, man. Must I as the black guy?
Yes, you must spell it out for me.
Hey, that's not how this works. And if you wanted to push me on it, maybe Jay-Z and Beyonce, but Stefon Diggs and Cardi B, no, not gonna work. Can't do it.
For all the NFL players out there that are thinking about getting into a relationship, I compel you to
hold
speak to
on. We're going to get relationship. Hold on. We're getting relationship advice from Sam Yarnell. Everybody, hold on.
No, I'm just perpetuating the idea that Nick Ferguson might need to be the NFL's relationship counselor. I mean, this guy clearly knows a thing or two about what's good and what's not for these NFL players when it comes to relationships. Nick, I'm totally with you. I could not agree more. I think you are exactly right. And obviously, you know what it takes to be in an NFL locker room without all these outside distractions and all these boat parties with mysterious random women.
With pink powder, straight edge.
Look, okay, listen. I played in New York with the Jets, and Curtis Martin, I tell you what, I mean, his dating profile before he got married was like A-class, right? I mean, Ananda Lewis. And then if I'm not, Tony Braxton was in there, right? Because to me—
break my heart.
Yes, that's what you want to do. You want to date someone, marry someone who's going to elevate your profile, not bring it down. Cardi B is not elevating his profile. It's only making it worse. And
then you love me again.
I mean, come on, man. You know what?
Sorry.
Okay, so here's the thing with Stefon Diggs. That's the love boat gone wrong. I'm calling that.
Well, I just wonder, though. I mean, is he going to get into any trouble for this real quick?
Well, see, the thing is, we don't know what the mysterious power.
We're never gonna find out. We'll never get to the bottom of that.
Now, if we were to find out that was something illegal, obviously that's a problem. But here's the bigger question: who was the idiot that filmed it and posted it? Who was that guy?
The same. I mean, well, look. I mean, you had a kid who decided to film himself prank calling Shedeur Sanders. I mean, there's idiots everywhere filming something. I mean, we all. I mean.
Well, but it's also the classic thing of, hey, I'm around a famous person. I'm just gonna film whatever happens because they're famous, and that means it's probably gonna go viral, right? And this person just clearly struck gold.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to the days where whatever happened behind closed doors?
Oh, hell no.
Behind closed doors.
Oh, because we have these. You know what these are? As my old buddy Colin Coward used to say, and I say old buddy because he doesn't return a phone call anymore. Thanks, Colin, for big timing me. They call these idiot magnets. Idiot magnets.
Well, someone should have taken that idiot magnet and threw it right in the ocean.
There's more NFL to talk about with Nick Ferguson. We'll do it next. We're talking NFL on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap with Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety, KOA Radio in Denver. One of our NFL guys. Hangs out with us during the season, during the off season, whenever we can get him. What'd you make of what Joe Flacco said? I was watching a conversation with him, a gaggle he did with the media where he was talking about the fact that look, I'm not going to be a mentor, but at the same time, I'll impart whatever wisdom and knowledge I can in this crowded quarterback room. But he's like, I'm in a no. He admitted, he's like, I'm in a no-win situation. If I say I'm being a mentor, then it sounds like I'm giving up on being the starter. And if I say I'm not being a mentor, then it sounds like I'm basically taking the role of being selfish. And I think he's right in terms of the way he's handling this.
Yeah, I think he is absolutely right. Let's not forget, several years ago when Brett Favre was with the Green Bay Packers, he was asked the same question as it pertains to Aaron Rodgers. And he was like, well, that's not my job. And he took a lot of negative feedback, but he was absolutely correct. It is not my job as a person that you brought someone in to take my job and you want me to coach them up. To hell with that. That is your job as the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach. And if you want me to do that and I'm a veteran player, guess what? That means you're going to pay me another check too. That's right. You're going to pay me for my quarterback position and being your pseudo quarterback coach. Now, I'll say this. Even though I'm telling you that, I operated a little different. When some team brought in a safety to replace me and I knew it was, I tried to help that guy. You know why, JP? I'm just that type of guy. You know why? Because I want to make sure I get your best shot. Because when I put your ass on that bench, I want to know that I gave you every tool in the tool shed to have an opportunity to dethrone me. So that's how I operated. But I understand Joe Flacco and what he's thinking.
One quarterback, Nick, who is definitely not looking to go into a new spot and become a leader or teach people below him by any stretch of the imagination or any indication that we've gotten, is Aaron Rodgers. And I know that we, fret to speak about this on the show because it's literally something that could change at a moment's notice. But Jason and I seem to talk about this every week, and it feels like more and more that Aaron Rodgers is going to begin the season not on a team and go to the first quarterback that gets injured. Obviously, the Terry Bradshaw comments this week. Jason and I talked about him yesterday on the show. What do you kind of make of the current update with the Aaron Rodgers situation with him and the Steelers? And where do you expect he ends up? Are the Steelers inevitable?
Well, it seems as though it's going to be the Steelers at some point. But if I am the Steelers brass, I'm not waiting on this. I mean, we've seen Aaron do this before. And don't get me wrong, I like Aaron as a quarterback. He's done some great things on the field, taking the Packers to the Super Bowl, being a league MVP, all of that stuff. I mean, that's his resume. It speaks for himself. But at the same time, how long do you have to wait to get him into the building? The idea is that, look, either you want to play or not. Like when I was a kid, my parents used to say, when it comes to decision making, you take a crap or you get off the pot. And that's where Aaron Rodgers finds himself at this particular moment. Either you want to continue to play football or you don't, because this puts the Pittsburgh Steelers in a tough spot because Mason Rudolph is their starting quarterback. You want to make sure you get into the organization and start building chemistry with some of those guys, the DK Metcalfs and Freiermuth. You want to make sure you start to develop that chemistry, because if you come late on the chain, even though I feel as though he's smart enough to get the system down, but the chemistry. So we can see if Aaron Rodgers were to join the Pittsburgh Steelers, the first 4 games are going to be like preseason for the Steelers, and whoever's on the schedule, they might as well check that off as a W. But don't wait for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision, because if you do this, Mike Tomlin, you're giving carte blanche to Aaron Rodgers, where he thinks that now he can manipulate and do everything he wants to do. And we've seen him do this before with the Packers twice and then with the New York Jets.
How about Kirk Cousins? Is that a backup option for them? We know Raheem Morris and Mike Tomlin, there's a relationship there. Is there a possibility that that's sort of a ace in the hole for the Steelers? And I hear a lot of people talking about it, the possibility that, look, Kirk Cousins is still sitting there. He's not, as far as I know, he's not at OTAs. There's this idea out there, I think, floating around that if Aaron Rodgers doesn't work out, their plan B might be Kirk Cousins.
Well, you know what? That's not a well thought out plan B. Let his ass sit there on the bench in Atlanta, because
more than Mason Rudolph?
Well, wait a minute. At least Mason Rudolph is a quarterback that can move around. Is he the proper solution for the team? Absolutely not. But going in the direction of Kirk Cousins because you are desperate is the same thing that got the Washington Commanders in trouble years ago, the Minnesota Vikings, and now the Atlanta Falcons. No, you don't do that just because you feel as though you don't have a quarterback you're satisfied with, because basically what you're going to get from Kirk Cousins is you got to trade for him, so you got to give up draft capital. Oh, by the way, they're paying him an absorbent amount of money with the Falcons. Even if you were to say, well, the Falcons, you're going to eat the majority of that cash, you still have to take that on. That's going to hurt you later on in dead cap money. So the idea is
haven't you already shown you're desperate, though, if you're the Steelers in this whole thing where you're waiting for Aaron Rodgers? Haven't you already shown you're a desperate team at this point?
Well, it shows a little desperation. But if you go down that road of acquiring a guy like Kirk Cousins, it shows that you are really desperate. I know they say desperate times call for desperate measures, but in my book, it makes people do dumb things. And this is not what the Steelers want to do. If you want to wait, like everyone always talks about, wait for Arch Manning. If that's your game plan, I would prefer the Steelers do that than try to wait on Rodgers and try to trade for Kirk Cousins.
Hey, have fun out there at Broncos training camp. I know you're going out there. I know you're going out to not training camp, but OTAs. Have fun out there. Maybe suit up. Maybe suit up. Throw the pads on.
Nah, trust me. Those dudes don't want that.
Always appreciate you, my man. Here, they put a smiley face on my Starbucks drink this morning, so I'm gonna give you the smiley face. There you go.
Okay.
We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, some odds and ends. MLB style. Get to that coming up. But first, some thoughts on a story, and we're kind of a day early on it, potentially. But a story that I think you're going to hear a lot about on Friday. As much as we're talking about it today, but I wanted to kind of get ahead of it. And it's the latest, I guess, leaf or branch off this seemingly evergreen story involving Bill Belichick, his girlfriend, Jordon Hudson. There are rumors that they are engaged to be married. We don't know if that is true or not. And Pablo Torre, who is, he is a dog with a bone right now. And he's got a hold of that bone, and he is not letting go, which I think is a very big part of this story that is developing here. And I'll get to that in a second. So to backtrack a little bit, there's this whole story. Bill Belichick takes the job at the University of North Carolina. And throughout the last several months, we've seen the stories about him, his much younger girlfriend, Jordon Hudson. There are a bunch of different reports about how long they had been dating, when did they meet, how old was she when he met, all of that regardless. She was, either late teens, early 20s. It doesn't matter. She was legal. She was a college student at the time. They met on a plane. She's chronicled the story. All of this stuff that's been out there, either in open source reporting or social media, through her own social media, whatever it may be. All of these different things that have been out there. All of it has sort of come to a head throughout the summer months, or throughout the last several months here in the spring, as we head into the summer months. And there was this interview that you see on the screen with Bill Belichick on CBS Sunday Morning, when she intervened in the conversation as he was doing a promotional stop for his book tour with CBS Sunday Morning. And a question was asked about how he had met Jordon Hudson. And she said, from off camera, we're not talking about that. And CBS Sunday Morning made it a point to show that she had intervened in the interview and said, we're not talking about that. Then sometime later, Pablo Torre started to do some deeper reporting and started digging deeper into the relationship and how she had started to sort of force herself into the scene as it related to Bill Belichick, and not just his personal affairs, but also his business affairs, and how that started to play out at the University of North Carolina. And then a report came out from Pablo Torre stating that Bill Belichick there had been, essentially this situation playing out where University of North Carolina athletics officials had said that Jordon Hudson was no longer welcome. In fact, using the word banned at the University of North Carolina's athletic facilities. That forced the University of North Carolina to come out and put out their own statement, not denying that report from Pablo Torre, but in some regards trying to push back against it. Now you have Pablo Torre asking for information, making public information requests, FOIA requests from the University of North Carolina. Emails, certain information that is public information because the University of North Carolina is a public institution. There are certain things they have to give up. There are certain things they have to give to the media. And Pablo Torre has asked for these things. Well, Friday is a big deadline for the University of North Carolina to either acquiesce to the requests from Pablo Torre and the emails and the information that he has submitted requests for, or Pablo Torre could then sue the University of North Carolina. Up until now, they've been dragging their feet on giving him the information that he is asking for. And if he doesn't get that information, this thing could get a whole heck of a lot uglier for the University of North Carolina. Stay tuned. But I do think there is an interesting part of this story, and that is the Pablo Torre part of it. He's the only one who's really going after this story in this way. He's the only one who's really pursuing the details of the relationship between the University of North Carolina, Bill Belichick, and Jordon Hudson in this way. And this goes back to something I talked about on the show yesterday when we were talking about Aaron Rodgers. And there are simply certain sports media outlets, your ESPNs, your Fox Sports, your CBSs, there are certain outlets that simply won't touch these sorts of stories. And why? Because they don't want to anger or push away certain personalities that they want access to. For the same reasons that a lot of media outlets won't be hypercritical of Aaron Rodgers, certain outlets are just staying clear of this Bill Belichick story, which apparently has legs, which apparently has life, which apparently has, there is something untoward going on. Whether it's the way North Carolina as a university is dealing with the story, whether it's the way Jordon Hudson has started to intervene and interfere in some of the business affairs of Bill Belichick, maybe to a detriment. Yet the only person who's decided to really do a deeper dive and report on this is Pablo Torre. And we need to ask a question. Why is that? Why is Pablo Torre the only guy who's willing to take the slings and arrows on this? It's a fascinating question. Watch this space. We'll see what winds up happening. We're coming back with odds and ends next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Don't forget, on Friday's show, Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online, hangs out with us, talks about some of the top stories of the week. Be curious to see what he thinks of the whole Stefon Diggs story. I got to be honest. Little dirty secret. I didn't even know he was dating Cardi B. I'm not tied into that. I'm not tied in that much to the entertainment world and the lives of, professional athletes and who they're dating. Be curious to see what he makes of that whole story about Stefon Diggs, the party boat, all of that good stuff. So we'll talk with him tomorrow on the show. Also, Tino Patino checks in to talk some NASCAR with us as well, get his thoughts on what took place at the Coca-Cola 600, Kyle Larson's attempt to run the double in this week's race as well. Couple of reminders for you. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast. It is this show in its audio form. If you're driving to work, subways, trains, planes, in the shower, laying in bed, you're looking for a good podcast to listen to, this show makes for a great podcast. Listen to us. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, you name it, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast, you can get this show. Go and subscribe today. In addition to all the TV affiliates we have across the U.S. and Canada, you can also watch this show on Spotify each and every day. The show gets uploaded there early in the afternoon. You can also watch us over on YouTube through our new YouTube channel. It's the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. It's easy. We have the show up there, commercial free every day. Also, SportsWrap Shorts. It is this show, sometimes clips from the show, and sometimes clips not even from the show. When there's breaking news and we're not here to give you the show, we have SportsWrap Shorts. Short little clips talking about some of the top news of the day as it breaks. Go and check it out, SportsWrap Shorts, available on our SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Paul Skeens. We have not talked a lot about Paul Skeens during this regular season so far. And at about, a third of the way through the Major League Baseball season, he is still the favorite to win the Cy Young Award in the National League at plus 165, followed by Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Skeens picked up his first win in quite some time yesterday with 6 2/3 stellar innings in a road victory for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are playing a little bit better on the road in Arizona. So Skeens gets the victory there, and this is why a lot of people say wins. I think he's 4-5 on the year. It's why a lot of people will point to wins and say they don't matter all that much in baseball. He's 4-5, pitching to an ERA of, I think, just under 2.2 or around 2.2 on the season. But Paul Skeens continues to do good things. If you're looking elsewhere in the National League, when it comes to the Cy Young Award, Zach Wheeler is plus 390 right now over on FanDuel. Then there's a huge drop-off. Hunter Green at 14-1. Jesus Luzardo, Jesus Lizard, is 18-1. Logan Webb at 20-1 right now if you're looking over at the National League. In the American League, Tariq Skubal at minus 125, followed by Max Fried of the Yankees, who's having an outstanding year at 6-1 at plus 600, and then Hunter Brown over at plus 750. Tennis, anyone? How about a round of applause? A tennis clap. For Richard Gasquet, whose career came to an end at the French Open on Thursday at the hands of Yannick Sinner. Sinner, the winner in their match over at Roland Garros at the French Open in straight sets. In the case of Gasquet, who retires at the age of 38 following his exit at the French Open, 16 career singles titles for Richard Gasquet. In his career. He made over $21 million. Certainly nothing to sneeze at, nothing to be ashamed at. Couple of doubles titles for him as well. And the story of Richard Gasquet's career, honestly, was health. The guy just couldn't stay healthy. Every time he turned around, it felt like he was battling some sort of injury. And unfortunately for a lot of guys in tennis, that just winds up being the story. Richard Gasquet first appeared at the French Open in 2002. Think about it. It's 2025. 23 years later, the guy is still playing at the French Open. And look, anybody who knows anything about tennis knows how grueling that sport can be, how hard it can be on your body. Hats off to Richard Gasquet on an outstanding career, which ended at the French Open with Yannick Sinner beating him earlier today. We've still got some of the big stars, obviously, in it at the French Open. Sinner being one of those guys. Obviously, Carlos Alcaraz being one of those guys. Novak Djokovic being one of those guys. Hats off to Tommy Paul, by the way, as well. If you didn't see it yesterday, he was down 2-0 and was able to come from behind, win the last 3 sets to move on in his match. So if you're rooting for the Americans, as we always are, if you're rooting for the Americans to try and capture one of these Grand Slam events in the world of tennis, there you go. Tommy Paul moving on over at the French Open. All right, that's going to do it for us on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Thanks to Nick Ferguson, obviously, for hanging out on the show with us. Again, David Ardsma was off this week because he had some personal matters to tend to. Thanks to Sam Yarnell for joining us as well. Again, tomorrow on the show, Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder, will hang out with us for his weekly spot, talking about some of the top stories of the week. Tino Patino will be here to preview the weekend in NASCAR. I'm Jason Page. That does it for us. That's Sports Wrap. We'll catch you back here on Friday.